Within this tank lives a miniature world. There are predators and prey, wind and rain. This desert is a dangerous place. But despite all...
Oğlum be, adamları rahat bırak amına koyayım. Zaten doğal ortamından almışım. Bir de 100 gün işkence mi ettiriyorsun? Yok, içmeyeceğim. Teşekkür ederim. Dur lan. Türk English. Subtitles'ınız nerede?
Sterling diyor ki hayatının sonuna kadar günde 10 meyveli kek yemek mi? Günde 3 long lark içmek mi?
Üç long lark ya. Bak. Fosforlu akrep. Niye kusacaksın?
First, we must go back to day 1. It all started when I got the tank, some materials, and a whole lot of cacti. I proceeded to mix up some dirt and then build up the substrate.
Oğlum bu adam yayın yapsa tutar ha.
After placing in some rock, I began to plant the cacti. Ouch! Their spines are extremely sharp, and it was a huge pain to plant anything. I added in some final touches, and the tank was complete. This will serve as the foundation for a thriving
Nick'inin
ecosystem.
sonuna Ryan koysun. Dr. Plants Ryan olmadı.
On day 3, I introduced the first animals. These are called isopods. As you can see, I have 2 varieties here, clowns and zebras.
Çinliler bunu yiyor değil mi?
After I placed them in,
kızartılacak bir böcek gibi yani bu.
Began to
Cips, doğal cips.
Search for shelter.
Got the vibe ya.
Alongside the isopods, I introduced springtails and buffalo beetles. These 2 detrivores will eat pretty much anything they can find. All of these tiny bugs will eventually be food for a future predator. By day 50, the isopod population began to boom. In the shaded areas of the tank,
50. güne nasıl geldik lan hemen?
Form small little herds. The juveniles looked almost identical to their adult counterpart. Here, you can even see one shedding its skin.
What the fuck?
While the zebras were thriving, the clowns seemed to have disappeared entirely. On the other hand, the buffalo beetles were taking over. I placed a dead cockroach into the tank to show just how many there were. Soon, there was nothing left but a hollow skeleton. They were running rampant and I needed a predator. I needed something deadly, something fast, something almost as terrifying as my mother-in-law. Let me introduce you to the dune scorpion. He is a vicious predator and will make short work of a beetle or isopod. Do you see that tiny white drop on his stinger? Well, that is a potent venom and I have to be extremely
That's calm. Pardon.
Careful. I picked him up and prepared to place him into the tank. After a gentle love tap, he took his very first step into the new world. Scorpions are almost completely blind, so they don't use their eyes to get around. Within just a few
Ben akrepleri çok seviyorum biliyor musunuz? Niye bilmiyorum. Küçüklüğümden beri böyle bir... Bizde ansiklopedi vardı. Habire akrep kısmını okuyordum. Çok cool duruyorlar. Küçükken bana bir anlattılar bunu böyle. Akrebin etrafını ateş çemberine sararsan kendini öldürür. Vay amına koyayım dedim. Küçükken kafam patladı böyle. Vay dedim lan. Ne delikanlı adam be. İşte benim favori hayvanım. İdol.
After a few hours, his burrow was complete and it just looked like an ordinary hole. But if we look underground, we can see it is so much more. It is his home.
Enis sana diyor ki abi dün yayın bildirimi gelmediği için yayını kaçırdım. Bugün ne yapıyoruz? Öpüldün küçük tür işareti 3.
Ne yapıyoruz? Reddit, korku, takılmaca.
But as day turned to night, he would emerge. Under ultraviolet light, he will glow a radioactive green.
Abi bir şey diyeceğim. Normal Doğada hani ay ışığında böyle parlar mı? Parlamaz herhalde. Parlar mı lan? Parlıyor mu çölde falan bu akrepler? Parlayabilir böyle. Dolunayda falan parlar herhalde.
On day 60, I realized the scorpion wasn't going to be enough. The beetles were breeding faster than the scorpion could eat them. I needed to add competition. Meet the blue death feigning
Bu ne lan?
beetle.
Oğlum gene ne yedirmeye geldin? Hayır içmeyeceğim ya. Yayın donuyor mu lan? Bir donuyor mu diyorlar. Bilgisayar zart zurt mu bir sesli çalışıyor.
Lerini o diyor ki yüksten dolayı aranızdan ayrılmak zorundayım. Seni ablam ve Kaan abim, sizleri seviyorum o yedi.
Kolay gelsin.
Ordinary bug. They have 3 superpowers. First off, they make their own sunscreen. This white powder on their shell will protect them from the desert sun. Secondly, they have a huge abdomen to store water, kind of like a camel. They can last for ages without any water at all. But if a predator tries to eat them, that's where its third superpower comes into play. They are indestructible. Their thick armor will protect them from sandstorms.
Oğlum herifler fön makinesi basmış ya. Yazık lan. Yo bu ne amına koy? Bu ne amına koy? Bu ne bir anda?
I added them into the tank and immediately one was making a fatal mistake. He wandered towards the scorpion burrow and then down inside.
Akrep yer mi? Oğlum işte ya meraktan ya demişler ya.
There was a stalemate. The beetle made his move. He tapped the scorpion and then retreated deeper into his burrow. The scorpion gave the beetle a gentle push and then
Akrep çok komik amına koyayım hadi git ya.
Gentle push and then gave the beetle a gentle push and then made his journey back to the surface.
Çok kibar anlaştılar. Yok Bay Canavar'ı izlemedik. İzleyelim mi? İzleriz onu.
I decided to let them be overnight. As the sun began to rise, something extremely rare was about to happen. It was rainy season, and one of the few storms of the entire year was about to commence.
Oğlum hortumu açtı şimdi üstlerine ya. Yabancı su.
The tank began to flood.
Lan.
As the storm faded away.
Bir de anlamıyorlar ya hani mesela akrebin gözü yok ama diğerleri görüyor mu? Görüyorsun dışarı var ama cam. Cam kavramı doğada yok ya. Bu ne amına koyayım? Lan oğlum buradan gideceğiz hadi koşun. Hadi selden kurtulabiliriz. Hadi koşun. Buradan böyle sonra bir git varıyorlar. Arkadan şey geliyor.
Storm faded away, animals began to emerge. The rain brought new life to the desert landscape. This rose of Jericho opened its leaves after receiving water. By day 63, the water area was teeming with life. Hundreds of tiny eggs that lay dormant in the sand began to hatch. The pond was swarming with these tiny white dots that were going to become something incredible. Meanwhile, on land, I figured it was time to introduce a new animal. Here is a Mexican jumping bean, and here are 30 more. These are not what they seem. After I added them in, they began to dance. They seem to roll around mindlessly, but each one is on a mission. Find shelter. They jump to escape the desert heat. It didn't take long for them to huddle on.
Nasıl evolution amına koyayım ya. Adam kendini çekirdeği çevirmiş.
Now, inside every bean lives a caterpillar. One day, they will emerge into a beautiful little moth. By day 72, life in the water had grown substantially. These little white crustaceans are called fairy shrimp. They glide through the water, filtering out whatever food they could find. In the shadows lives an animal much larger and less delicate than the fairy shrimp. Meet the triop. I put one on my finger so you can get a sense of scale. They look completely prehistoric. They look to be thriving now, but there is a problem. Every day, the water level got lower and lower. The desert sun was quickly drying up their little pond.
Ne oğlum? Su koy o zaman amına koyayım da.
On day 81, the pond was almost dried up, but life was more active than ever. Many of the triops were carrying bundles of eggs and needed to find a safe place to lay them.
Yumurta
Here,
koyacaklar.
you can see a female carefully digging her nest.
Kendileri ölecekler.
She will lay her eggs in this hole, and they
İzliyor
won't
deneyimi
hatch until the
gerçekten.
following rainy season. The fairy shrimp had also laid their eggs, and their
Hala nefesini tutuyor değil mi?
life cycle was reaching the end.
Of ya, harbi lan
Only
nerede
a
oğlum?
few days later, the pond had dried up completely. The rows of Jericho had closed, and life seemed bare. But after closer inspection, you will notice hundreds of tiny eggs waiting for the next time it rained. Life was booming, but it was time to introduce a new predator. This animal will easily find her way to
Yağmur
the top
yağsın.
of the
Oğlum
food
bunu koyma işte ya.
find her way to
Ya bunu koyma amına
introduce a
koyayım ya.
new predator. This animal will easily
Kedi at sırada. Bir sonrakinde de kedi fırlat bir
find
tane.
her way to the top of the food
Anasını
chain.
sikecek bu ortalığı
Let me
şimdi.
introduce you to the bearded dragon. I'm just kidding. She's way too big for this tank. But I have many more projects on the way. So do me a favor and like this video, subscribe.
Abi ben bu adamı sevdim. Bu adam psikopatmış ya. Güzel kanal. Dr. Plants. Hala olmuyor musun? Evet.
Secde 04 varsa
Başarılı chat.